just city, a green city, and a reconciled city. I've seen firsthand as a counselor in Vancouver the power of the idea of having a common goal. And in our case, the goal that I was working on, amongst others, was to be the greenest city in the world. So it definitely has produced incredible green policy, whether it's in transportation or green buildings. We've been able to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions from both by 15% over the last 10 years. We've seen green jobs increase by 49%. We've seen urban local food assets increase by 50%. Waste is down 30%. I mean, I could go on. But what the power of it actually has nothing to do with green, although it's great that it has something to do with green. The power is sharing a common vision. So when a mayor, somebody with the capital letter in their title, stands up and says, let's all move in this direction, you see things happen in ways that you can't even, I would never have guessed were possible or imaginable. If somebody, we set the goals and we worked with experts to find the goals that we would need to reach to be the greenest city in the world. But imagining actually reaching those goals in a decade was a stretch, right? And yet I've seen us, in 5 years, we actually met and surpassed our transportation goals. And they weren't simple goals, right? They were, at the time we set them, we believed them to be stretch goals, but setting them and getting people mobilized behind them had a power that we didn't understand when we first started that exercise. I think I was born optimistic, so I have to sort of contextualize in that. But I really see the Greenest City Initiative in Vancouver, the work we've done on reconciliation, the engagement processes, the opening up government and making, capital C, capital H, City Hall more accessible, but also the city more accessible, and seeing how more people saw themselves reflected in the work of the city, both the small C city and the big C city. I see this possibility for a just city, a green city, a decolonized city, a highly engaged city, a city that reflects the kind of democracy that the people who came up with the idea of democracy imagined, which is not that there'd be like this governing class, but that actually each of us, that democracy would be made the strongest by having each of our voices represented. And I see that possibility not just 50 years, I actually think that possibility is in a 20, 30-year horizon if we set the goals and we work towards them. I don't think there's a perfect city on planet Earth. That's not, despite all my optimism, I don't think there's a perfect city. But I think if you aggregated all of the edgiest practices happening in different cities around the world, you have perfect and then some happening. So it's really about how do we convene and how do we come together and how do we learn what's happening in these different cities about those practices that are happening on the edge and pushing those edges further out. And through that, bring them home in ways that work for our context. That's what's going to create that city. At the Future Cities Canada Summit, I spoke to 3 cities that I think have particularly good practices on collaboration. Vancouver in relation to the greenest city, Bogota in relation to their urban farming program that they have, and Barcelona in relation to how they are bringing together people and globally convening a discussion about what a just city looks like in the here and now. But I've also seen cities ranging from Copenhagen, which really is the global rock star on the greenest city side. Singapore has some incredible stuff happening on smart cities, contextualized in the kind of democracy they have, which is quite different from the one that we might expect here in Canada, but understanding there's something to learn there about how we bring it over. Los Angeles, believe it or not, is one of the world leaders on environmental policy in water. See, when I say environmental policy, you don't think Los Angeles, but their use of water, which is driven by the context, right? It's a very dry place. Water costs money to get to people, so they've really had to think about water conservation in ways that a rainforest city like Vancouver didn't really have that drive to do, and yet for all the same reasons should be doing and should be thinking what the next edge practice is that we can be doing.